So there's really two different types of My Alarms user or end users per se. So really, you've got one that has access to just one account. Okay, so one account, one location, that's it. Probably a residential, maybe just a business, one business, and the owner wants to have access to it, but they have access to only one account. Okay, the other one is they have access to multiple accounts. Okay, and those might be like a security guard for a subdivision or something. It could be a maintenance department for a school system or whatever, or a hospital system. It could be property managers for several homes or something like that, vacation homes. It could be even district or regional managers for store locations or whatever. So it's possibilities are endless, really, of what you can have. But that's the two different types you have. One location, two, multiple locations. They're very similar in what they can do and what they look like, but we're going to kind of look at both of them and see the differences. So the very first one that we're looking at right now is it's going to be for Mr. SpongeBob SquarePants. So he wanted to get set up to be able to view his pineapple and just kind of take a look at it, make sure. So what we did is we went ahead and created a username for him. And basically, if anybody has ever requested a user to be set up for Compass, it's essentially the exact same way with My Alarms. So if you're not an admin dealer, then you're going to call your BDSR, you're going to call dealer support, and you're going to request, or email, either one, you're going to request to have an end user set up for My Alarms. And you're going to provide a username, a valid email address, and here's the difference between this and Compass. You have to give us the account number or account numbers that they're going to get access to. Okay, so that's very important. When we're setting up Compass users for your dealer, we know your dealer number. They get access to the dealer number, and that's nice and easy. But if we're going to set up an end user account for you for My Alarms, we have to know the account number or the account numbers in order to set that up. Also, and we're going to get into this in a little more detail here in a little bit, you'll have to let us know what authority level or permission role you want to give that customer. So everybody's a little bit different. Our dealers run the gamut as far as giving their customers full access to data entry on My Alarms to view only. It can't do anything. If they see something on there that they need changed, they call the dealer. And then everything in between. So you can do pretty much anything. And that's the beauty of Compass and My Alarms, is it's very customizable. It's not like our previous version of CMS Connect, which was no gray area, basically. You either had full access or to do data entry, or you had no access to do data entry. There was no in between. And that kind of kept a lot of people from using CMS Connect. So with Compass and My Alarms, we wanted to make it very customizable. So if you want one tab to only show for a user, maybe it's only the contacts tab and nothing else, because you want them to manage their own contacts but not do anything else, we can hide all those other tabs and just show them just the contacts. So when you're contacting the BDSRs or your dealer support, you want to just let us know, hey, I want this customer to not make any updates. They're view only, or they can update contacts but nothing else, or they can update their code word and contacts but nothing else. And again, we're going to get into a little more detail. I'm going to show you what those roles look like, especially for the admin dealer, so that you can see them and see the descriptions and everything on there. So we'll get into a little bit more detail on that. But then the last thing you'll want to let us know is if you want your customer to be able to place the account on test using Compass or My Alarms. So by default, if you don't tell us, we allow the user to place the account on test, and we put a default test time of 24 hours. So this is just FYI information for you right now. So if you don't tell us anything, all you say is set this guy up, give him view-only access for this account number. We give him access to be able to place the account on test via My Alarms, and it's a 24-hour test. So if you'll let us know, if we're setting that up for you, let us know if they can place the account on test or not on My Alarms. And if so, if you don't want 24 hours, if you want anything less or more than 24 hours, just let us know what you want them to be able to do. A lot of our dealers that give this to their customers are going with 8 or 12 hours, especially for residential, stuff like that. But we just figured 24 hours, that's one day, and that's what our default was right off the bat. But it's very, very easy to change. You just have to let us know on that. And again, if you're an admin dealer, it's very simple to do that. You select which test category you want, and it's real easy to do that as well. So, like I was saying, setting up a My Alarms user is just like Compass, and that's what we did here with SpongeBob. So we set him up. Your customer is going to get the same 2 emails that everyone else gets when they set up Compass. So it's 2 emails coming from noreply@myalarms.com. The first email is going to give them their username and a temporary password, and the second email is going to give them a link to verify their email address. Okay, they'll click on that email or that link. It's going to take them to the login page for My Alarms, and they're going to enter the username and that temporary password, and then it's going to prompt them to update their password, answer 3 security questions, and then accept the terms and conditions, and then they're in. Okay, so it's just like the steps and processes of Compass. So you may want to let your customers know that they're going to be getting those 2 emails from noreply@myalarms.com. So we already did that with SpongeBob. So he already got in here. He's got his username. He's got his password. He's even logged in once because he's got the Remember Me box checked. He's going to go ahead and log in. So now when I log in to SpongeBob's account, you're going to notice one difference. He has access to only one single account, right? So he doesn't get the accounts page. Why? Because he only has access to one account, right? So he doesn't need to get to the accounts page. So it immediately takes him to the location page. You'll notice the global search isn't up here because what's he going to search for? He only has access to the one single account. So this is what I mean by being if you have access to only one account, it's a very, very simplified version of Compass. Okay, so he's got his name right here in the tab. He's got the same thing that you'll see in Compass. Last 30 days, alarms, troubles, dispatch supervisors. He can see his code words up here just like you can on Compass. The date or the time, local time there is what he sees. And then down below, he's going to get the account information. So he can see his account number. He can see the panel type if you guys are entering that information. And then he can see the active date. So that's the date we first received a signal from this account. So he can see all this stuff. Over on the right-hand side, he can see his location information. So he's got his name, his address, his city, state, and premises phone numbers that are listed on the location information. Now, the only thing he can do is click the map to make sure that's got the correct address and it's mapping correctly. He can't make any data changes. So just one piece of information, too. I've got SpongeBob set up. He is strictly view only, okay? He cannot make any kind of data changes. He can place the account on test, which I'll show you in just a second, but he cannot make any kind of data changes. I don't trust him to make a data change. I've seen him work before. I know how he is. I don't want him to make data changes. So if he sees something that needs to be changed on his account, I want him calling me, okay? So I'm going to scroll on down, and I'm going to show you the tabs down here. These are all the exact same tabs that you have on Compass. So if we pull up this account with our dealer login, right here, I'm in Compass now. Here's my dealer login. I'm looking at SpongeBob's account. Look at all the extra information I see with my dealer login, plus all the extra tabs. Okay, so we can show the end users more tabs if they want, if you want them to, but most of the time we want it more like this, and the customer wants it more like this because they understand it. They don't understand the alarm lingo very often. But, so for them, for SpongeBob, for view only, we're going to show location activity. So just like with Compass, he's loading the last 30 days automatically of the location activity. They can do more than that if they want. They can go back to 18 months total and see all their history on their account that way. And then they can do everything you can do on yours. He can export this if he wants to see it. He can use the 6-dot die, and he can hide columns if he wants to hide columns. If I'm an end user, I may not need to see the match column. I may not see the raw signal. I don't know what that stuff is. I probably don't see the incident number. And I can just kind of clean up my columns to make it more narrow and easier to see everything on one page. That way I don't have to scroll back and forth down here like I am. So location activity, again, exactly like you're seeing on Compass. So then we'll go to testing. So one of the things we change on testing by default is we hide the service type category. If you guys were with me the past few weeks, you've seen me placing accounts on tests and stuff like that. In the Compass side, we've got all zones, we've got individual zones, and we have the service type, which allows you as a dealer to place one type of service or multiple types of services on test. Bergs, fires, medical, that type of thing, all test one time. We hide that from the end users by default because most of them don't understand the whole service type thing. They don't know that they want to be able to place all the zones on their system type on test. So just to simplify and take down some confusion and minimize some phone calls to you asking questions, we hide that service type. Now, with that said, if you get a customer that wants that kind of access and you think they understand what they're talking about, maybe they are a security guard, they've been part of an alarm company before, so they understand what that is, then yeah, we can open that up for them. Again, that's part of the customization of Compass and My Alarms. So again, with the testing, they can do the same thing you did. So they can place all zones on test, or they can place individual zones on test. So he can go in here and he can click off zone 1 and zone 3, and go ahead and define the date and time, and then place those zones on test. Everything's logged to the event history, so if he does it, his username is going to show up in the location activity that he's the one that placed that account on test or those zones on test and for how long. Now, on our zones and our contacts for SpongeBob, like I said, he's view only. So if I click over here on the tab for zones, I can see all my zones, and he can see all his zones, but they're all view only. There's no action column out here. He can't do anything to this. So the only thing he can do is say, that's not a front door. That's supposed to be a side door. So he calls me and says, hey, zone 1's wrong. It says front door, but it's really supposed to be the side door. And then I can update in Compass for him. One of the things we're working on right now as a new feature coming down the road is we're going to open up the zone description for end users. Right now, we don't allow end users whatsoever to make any kind of changes to zones because we didn't have the ability at first to just say, open up only this field. So they could go in and edit the event ID, they could edit the zone ID, and we just didn't feel comfortable doing that, even if a dealer asks us to open up the zone page for their customers. So what we're doing now is we're working on a new feature that's going to open up just the zone description. So now if SpongeBob sees that the zone 1 is front door and it's supposed to be side door, and I give him access to update zones, the only thing he's going to be able to update is the zone description. He can go in there and type that. Alarm.com, their end users have that same ability as well, where they can go in and kind of do that zone description. Can't change the event ID off of it, can't change the zone ID, but they can change that zone description. So it's going to be kind of a little bit more like that. But for now, he has view-only access to his zones. His contacts are the exact same way. He's seeing his contacts exactly the same way that you're seeing them on Compass. He's got the call list at the top. He's got other contacts below. Other contacts, again, once again being like maybe just someone with a passcode, like a house sitter or a babysitter or a housekeeper, someone like that might need a passcode but not necessarily get called in the case of emergency. They're going to be down here under other contacts. Also, your SMS people and email auto notification are going to be under the other contacts. And he's seeing all this information, and he can look at it, and he can click on this stuff, and he can see that the email address is there and verify that. And that's really what this is for him, is to verify the information, look at the activity. If he has any questions, then he can call me, and I can make the updates for him. Now, we also include the Schedules tab, only because if he's a supervised open and close account, it's there. Now, if he clicks on it right now, he doesn't have any permanent schedules for this system, so it's no big deal. He's not going to see anything because he has nothing to see. So that is, the location information. Now, the only report that we give end users that have access to one account is really simple. We give them the access to the mail-out report because there's really nothing else they need to see. So you'll see it defaults to account and event reports, and it defaults to mail out. There's nothing else that they can look at. And still runs the same way. Again, if you remember a couple weeks ago, I did reports. So they can go in and they can run their reports just like we can in Compass. And then when it runs, it shoots it over to the report or the inbox. And then they can go ahead and view that report right there. And this is a report that I ran earlier. And you can see here's his information. So now if he wants this in printed form, he's got this in printed form. It's in a nice PDF format. He sees all of his information on it, and that's all the location activity for whatever he chose to run. Okay, so that's the mail-out report. That's really the only report that we give to the end users by default. because like we said, that's basically all they really need. They don't need most of the other account or reports that we have available for the dealers. So as far as the administration, Sponge can do the same thing that we're doing. He can go in and he can change his first name, last name. Now, the one thing we cannot do is we cannot change usernames. Some of you may already know this. Even with Compass dealers, we can't change usernames. It's something within our system that doesn't allow the username to be changed. So if he came back and said, "Well, I don't like Sponge Man, I want Sponge Bob," we could do that. We could accommodate him, but we would have to delete his username altogether and then add him back in. Not a real big deal. Same thing as with the Compass users. If you get someone in your office that wants to change their username, we can do that, but we delete their current one and we re-add them in with the new one that they want. So they just basically have to go through the process, the initial process of logging in again. So it's just a few extra steps for them. It is doable, but like I said, that's the downfall of the username not being able to get changed, is they just have to take the setup steps again to get that initial login process. Email address is shut down for the end user. Now, again, we can change the email address, and you could change the email address if you're an admin dealer. The only thing that they get there is if you change the email address, they will get another email verification from noreply@myalarms.com. They'll click on the link just to verify that's the correct email address, and they're good to go. They don't have to do anything else except verify that email address by clicking that link. But what Sponge can do, he can change his password on his own. So if he types in his password here, that'll open up, and he can change his security questions if he needs to. Again, just in case anyone wants to know, the security questions are really only used if Sponge forgets his username or password, and he clicks the link on the login page for forget username or forget password. It asks that. So that's what he can do on My Profile. Default settings, just like with your dealer logins for Compass. Again, it's dumbed down a little bit for the end users depending on what access they have. But he can go in and he can change his default settings to what it wants to look like, what he wants his home page to be. By the way, that's a new development just in the past month or so. You guys all have that as well. If you go to your administration, click on the default settings tab, you can choose what your home page, what you want that to be. So that will be there for you, for all of you, including your end users. Locations, he can go through, he can change all this. Maybe he wants more than 10 lines of event history. He can go all the way up to 150 if he wanted to. The only bad thing about 150, I would tell you, forewarn anyone that changes it to 150, is the page loads a little bit slower. Also, if you do have the scroll bar at the bottom, it makes it a pain to have to scroll all the way down the bottom for 150 lines to get to the scroll bar, scroll all the way to the right, and scroll bar all the way back to the top. I find about 20 or 30 to be the magic setting for myself. So just in case you're changing the location activity, I like 20 or 30 lines on my location activity. Sponge can change all this himself, though. You can walk him through it if he needs to. He can hide stuff like I was showing you earlier on the location activity. If you hide columns here, they hide permanently until you open them back up again. Okay, so now he doesn't have to click on the six-point die. He can do it from right here, and those will always be hidden from him. So that's basically what he can see on, an end user can see on one account. They have access to just one account. So what we're going to do now is we're going to pop over to an end user that has like a security guard, or a maintenance guy. He's got access to more than one account. So we're going to pop over here and we're going to look at the Luke Skywalker account. So Luke is my security guard. He's got access to 3 accounts. We're going to go ahead and log into him. These were the links I was telling you about earlier, folks, where you see forgot your username, forgot your password. If I select these, it's going to ask me one of those 3 security questions. I have to answer those security questions correctly before it will send me any information to my email address. But those are the links I was talking about. So we're going to log in as Luke, and we're at My Alarms. And so now you'll see this is a lot more like what you're seeing in Compass, right? I've got my accounts page, and I've got my accounts listed. Now, I've only got access to 3 accounts here, so it doesn't really matter if I'm in the all accounts or the recently accessed accounts. I'm only going to see 3 accounts. For that matter, I don't really need to make any of these favorites because, again, all I have access to is 3. But we've got some end users who have access to 65, 75, 85 accounts. So they might actually want to use the favorites and stuff like that. So they have the ability to do that. Now, the one thing you'll notice is that an end user, even with the end user with multiple accounts, they do not have the access to the dashboard. Okay, so the end users do not have access to the dashboard like the dealers do. Again, we feel like most of the information on my dashboard is kind of, driven towards dealer lingo and alarm company lingo, so we don't make that available. We can make it available to an end user, but we have to actually make them what we call a dealer user in order to open up the dashboard for them. So it is possible. They just would not use my alarms. They would end up using Compass. But again, we can set them up and we can restrict them to whatever we need to do to make you happy, but we can't open up the dashboard that way. But he doesn't need that. Like I said, he's only got the 3 accounts. Now, really, that's the biggest difference between Luke and SpongeBob. So SpongeBob had access to just the 1 account. Luke's got access to 3. But I'll show you real quick. Let's go to Luke's account. Luke's also got access to make some data changes. So when I pulled Luke up, we go to the Skywalker account. Now you'll see I've got the pencil to edit my location information. I trust Luke a little bit more. Like I said, he's a security guard. I trust him with this information. So when I click the pencil for the location information, the only thing that he can make a change to are the premises phone numbers and the code words. We do not allow end users to make changes to the location names or the location address. If they need to make any of those type of changes, they need to contact the alarm company. Okay, so even even an end user that has full access to make data changes on the location information, they're only going to get access to change the phone numbers and the code words. Okay, so he can update this all he wants. He's not touching the address. He's not touching the site name. So down below, he's got the location activity. Now, testing, like I was saying earlier, he knows what he's talking about. He was a former employee at an alarm company, so he knows what service type is. So this is what I was talking about. He has the ability to place service types on test, just like an alarm dealer does. So that's like I was talking. We can customize it. SpongeBob doesn't get that button. Luke Skywalker does get that button. So that's the only difference between the two of them is the service type test being there. Now zones, once again, zones are going to be view only right now. They're all locked down. He's only looking at the stuff just like SpongeBob is. But on contacts, Luke, I trust. So Luke, I've got opened up. Luke can add a new contact. He can change the order of the call list. If he wants Yoda to be second instead of Jason, he just clicks and drags. And now Yoda is second on the call list and Jason's third on the call list. He's got his other contacts down below. If he wants to delete a contact, he's got the trash cans over here, just like you do as a dealer. And if he needs to make an update, he clicks the pencils and he can make the updates as well. So we can do, you may have some customers that want to be able to change the call list order, but nothing else. They don't want to add or they don't want to delete or anything like that, or you don't want them to add or delete. We can do that as well, okay? So we can open it up or maybe you don't want them to add, you want them to edit, or you don't want them to delete. Any of those options, we can fit those options and customize those roles for you to open them up as much as we need to. So that's your contacts, your schedules. The other one that I have on this user is the general dispatch instructions. We talked about this a little bit in the past. The general dispatch instructions are a page that every one of our operators sees when the alarm goes or the account goes into alarm status. It's just notes on the account that they're going to pass along to either the 911 dispatchers or the emergency call list people, okay? And it's simple notes. In this case here, we've got the gate code is 1977, and we've got a note on here that there's an attack Wookiee on the premises. So we're passing that information along to the police department and the fire department because they need to know if there's an attack Wookiee on premises. Now, what I'm hoping for is Luke sees this. This is view only for him, but even though it's view only, if he says, unfortunately, the Wookiee died last year. He was pretty old, so he can call me and let me know. I can update this as a dealer, but he can't update that as an end user. We've got that locked down a little bit for the end user. We don't want them just putting any notes, whatever notes on that page for our operators to see. So that is just for the dealers to do. So Luke can call me, let me know that the Wookiee is no longer alive, and then we can go that way, and I can clear that out for him. Now, the only other difference that Luke has, because he has access to more than one account, he actually has one more report available to him as well. So instead of just the mail report, he's also got the account summary. And as we've talked about in the past, the account summary is just a one-line summary of all the accounts he has access to. And he only has 3, but, whatever. If you have access to more than one, it's good to have that account summary. If you have access to only one account, you really don't need that account summary, because all you do is just log in, and there's the account you have access to. So Luke has access to the account summary or the mail-out report. That's really the biggest difference for that. He also has the global search up here. So now he doesn't have to go back to the accounts page to pull up an account. If he knows what account he's looking for, he can just type that in. Didn't find it because he doesn't know how to type. So he just types it up there. It finds the one account, and then it takes him directly to the locations page. And now we're starting right back over again on the location database information. So that's really the big differences between the multiple accounts and the single account. Now, the other thing I did not point out yet, and I will now, is you probably have noticed when I logged in as SpongeBob and as Luke, I have my logo up here. So my alarm company is called Just Amir Alarm Services. So I have my logo up there instead of my alarms. So if you've got logos that you want us to upload for you, we are able to do that, and then your customers would see your logo up in this top right-hand corner instead of the My Alarms logo. They still see My Alarms on the logo on the login page, but as soon as they get logged in, they'll see your logo. So a couple of really quick things. The logo needs to be, it's the pixel size is 210 by 50. So think short and wide, or if you have a hard time remember that was basically my nickname in high school. So short and wide, 210 wide, 50 tall. So it's got to look very similar to this right here. A lot of people might have logos that are like a stop sign or something like that. Those don't work very well because what Compass will end up doing, and My Alarms will stretch it out to make it look to fit 210 by 50, so everything gets stretched out. You can't really see it that well. So work with your logos and make sure they're really, really, really close to 210 by 50, but we can upload that, and then every time a customer gets set up with that, they'll see that logo there as well. That's basically what I wanted to show today. I did have one other thing. It's a little shorter than I normally talk or have been talking, and that's because we were short one item. We were hoping to have it in production, but we've been fighting with it a little bit. We have a new feature that's going to be coming hopefully in the next week or two, and I'm going to log out so I can kind of show you what it looks like. I don't have it on here. Like I said, it's not available yet. But directly below the forgot your password, there's going to create user. So one of the things a lot of the dealers have been saying is they want their customers to have My Alarms, but it's a pain to have to try and call or email or notify every one of your customers to get all the information from them in order to get them set up. So what we've done is we've got a link that's going to be here right at the bottom, and like I said, we're hoping to have it in within the week or two at the most, and it's going to say create user, and it's going to allow the customers to create their own My Alarms user. Okay, there's some restrictions to it. You'll have to still contact them a little bit, maybe, and you can put this out in your biller if you wanted to, something like that. But they'll have to know, obviously, the web address, myalarms.com, or www.myalarms.com. And then the two things they need to log in or to create their user is their account number, so their CS number, and then they need to have a code word or a valid passcode on the account. So on the account itself, so either one of the code word 1, code word 2s, or a full access PIN on the contact level. Once they have that, it basically walks them through creating a username, adding their email address, and then it sends them the 2 emails for no reply at My Alarms, and then they basically finish the process on themselves. Now, the 2 things that I want to point out for those users that end up using that, they get created as view only. Okay, so they will be a view only user, and they get set up for 8 hours test period. So those users that use the create 8-hour test period, they can place an account on test using My Alarms for 8 hours, and they're view only. So they may get in there, once they get in there and they say, I can't make changes to contacts, they'll need to contact you at that point. Then we can update their roles if we need to at that point. But they can go ahead and get self-registered without having to call you guys or you call them all the time to try to get that information. It asks them for their first name, their last name, like I said, a username, and it will tell them if the username is available or not available. So it has to be a unique username, just like it does now. And then the email addresses, and then as soon as they put the email addresses in there, it sends those two emails from no reply at My Alarms to verify their email address and gives them a username or their username and their temporary password. So again, we're hoping that's going to help people. That's coming, and I said I thought we were going to have it in production today or this week, and it was at the final hour that it wasn't available. So I said, you know what, we're going to go ahead and do My Alarms anyway. And then pretty soon you guys are going to be able to see it. So if you go to My Alarms, probably, like I said, by the end of this week, no later than next week, you'll see the little link down here. It says Create User. And I invite you to go ahead and try it out yourself. You know, create a user for your office account or something like that just to see how that works. And let us know if you got any questions or any problems that come up when you do that.